Hey everyone, welcome back to Otakuact. So we pick up right where we left off. Donggu is not backing down from Jin-Woo, and honestly, I respect the audacity, but bro, you're about to learn why you don't mess with the Shadow Monarch. Donggu steps closer, demanding an answer from Jin-Woo, and when our boy's eyes turn to ice, and I mean ice cold, he doesn't give him what he wants. Instead, Jin-Woo hits him with that chilling suggestion to go ask his brother himself. The words struck deep, and Donggu just loses it. This man roared and threw a punch straight at Jinwoo's face. But here's the thing about our Shadow Monarch. He's not just overpowered, he's smart. Jinwoo slips past that punch like it's nothing and retaliates with a blow that sinks deep into Donggu's gut. He howls and lunges. But Jinwoo's fist comes down again, crushing his head into the pipes. But Jinwoo doesn't stop there. His grip tightens around the skull, and he's slamming it again and again, blood splattering with each impact. The brutal thuds echoing through that empty space while Jinwoo remains locked in, hell-bent on crushing whatever resistance is left. This is the Jinwoo we've been waiting for. No mercy, no hesitation. But then, a deafening crash tears through the factory as the ceiling explodes and Thomas Andre lands with a literal earthquake. Dust and rubble raining around him as he rises from the crater. His voice rang out, calm yet commanding, telling Jinwoo to stop. He reminded Dong-Su of the warning he'd given him not to touch Jin-Woo, and seeing his guildmate battered and broken, he asks flatly if he's still alive. Jin-Woo, still holding Dong-Su by the head, replies coldly that he wasn't done yet. Thomas offers him a way out, release Dong-Su and he'll overlook what happened. But when Jin-Woo asks what happens if he refuses, Thomas bares his teeth with a growl, warning that it's no longer open for negotiation. In one effortless motion, Jinwoo flings Dong-Su's limp body aside like a rag doll. His broken form sprawled across the factory, his last flicker of consciousness burning with hatred, mentally urging Thomas to kill Jinwoo in his place. Now we have Jinwoo facing the indomitable Thomas Andre, unshaken, no fear, no doubt, just quiet defiance. Thomas asks if Jinwoo truly understands who he is, and Jinwoo's gaze remains icy and unwavering, silently asserting that he doesn't care. This caught Thomas off guard because this wasn't ignorance. Jinwoo knew exactly who he was, and just didn't care. That kind of fearlessness was something Thomas hadn't seen in years. We get this beautiful flashback of Thomas's rise, born into poverty, raised as an outsider, never exceptional until his gift revealed itself. A terrifying talent for overwhelming violence. He sharpened it through endless fights and blood. Those who mocked him were silenced. Those who challenged him were crushed. Time seemed to freeze as Thomas launched forward, his roar filling the air as his hand shot toward Jinwoo's skull, telling him to blame his ignorance for what was about to happen. But outside, the scavenger guild finally arrived, hunters moving to secure the perimeter until something massive came barreling at them like a missile. The ground quaked, metal screeched, and something skidded across the floor with brutal force. It was Thomas. Silence fell over the guild members, eyes wide, breaths caught, their strongest thrown like a rag doll. They rushed to his side in panic, but Thomas raised a single hand, signaling them to stay back. His face was dark, his pride wounded deeper than his body. Jinwoo had already summoned Igris and Kaisel. Igris appeared cradling the barely breathing Jinho in his arms. Jinwoo immediately ordered them to rush Jinho to the nearest hospital, making sure they did everything they could to save him. Igris bowed deeply, mounted Kaisel, and they vanished into the sky, streaking toward salvation. Back on the ground, scavengers poured into the factory, dozens of elite hunters behind Thomas. But Jinwoo was not outnumbered. He raised a hand and shadows erupted across the floor like smoke. One after another, the Shadow Army emerged, knights, beasts, giants, forming an unstoppable tide of darkness. Thomas grinned because for the first time in a long while, he'd found someone who didn't fear his strength, someone who didn't kneel. This wasn't about Dong-Su anymore. Now it was about reclaiming his pride, and the only way was by killing Jinwoo right then and there. He offered Jinwoo one last chance to admit his mistakes, back off and apologize. In return, he'd spare his life. But Jinwoo only stood still, expression cold and unreadable, as he slowly raised his middle finger toward the world's strongest hunter. That was the final straw. Fury exploded through Thomas as Jinwoo's blatant disrespect shattered any restraint he had left. His shirt ripped apart, revealing a chiseled body as his muscles swelled, hardening like armor, while terrifying force surged beneath his feet. War erupted. The Scavenger Guild moved first with shields infused with mana, creating a shimmering defense. But Jin-Woo's shadow army surged forward like a black tidal wave. Nearly 1,000 shadows collided with hundreds of top-tier hunters. Thomas tore through the battlefield, his path cutting straight toward Tusk. The massive shadow mage raised his arms and summoned a thick barrier, but Thomas didn't slow. He launched himself skyward and came crashing down, shattering the magical wall and tearing Tusk's head clean off in one brutal strike. The Scavenger Guild was being overrun. Thomas saw his elite squad crumbling beneath the relentless tide of shadows. At the heart of it all stood Jinwoo, staring down at him not with fury, but with something colder, pity. Thomas charged forward, but Iron stepped into his path. The towering knight stood firm but was tossed aside like scrap as Thomas drove a fist through his shield. His eyes snapped back to Jinwoo, only to find the man was gone. Then, with a flicker of black, Jinwoo appeared beside him and silently drove the demon monarch's dagger into his abdomen. But instead of cutting, the blade merely scraped along his hardened flesh. Jinwoo's eyes flicked with surprise. Thomas didn't waste the moment. He swung hard and the punch landed flush, sending Jinwoo flying across the factory floor. Standing tall, Thomas spat that Jinwoo had made the mistake of looking down on a national-level hunter. He raised a hand and an invisible force gripped Jinwoo midair. With a voice devoid of mercy, he told him to feel the difference in strength, feel despair. But instead of struggling, Jinwoo responded with his own power. Ruler's authority exploded outward, slamming down on Thomas like a hammer and cracking the floor beneath him. He blinked in disbelief. Jinwoo wasn't resisting the pull. He was overpowering it. Jinwoo blurred forward and his punch smashed into Thomas's face, blood spraying as the hunter staggered back. For the first time in his life, Thomas tasted his own blood. Jinwoo's voice cut through the tension as he rushed in again, mockingly asking, "What happened to all that talk about despair?" And Thomas found himself being pushed back, struggling to keep up. Shocked by the relentless precision behind every blow, he realized he'd grossly underestimated this opponent. Blood dripping from his mouth, he snarled the single word, "Reinforcement." Jinwoo braced as Thomas transformed. His body swelled past 3 meters tall, now encased in golden armor with black horns curling back from his head. His hair blazed like wildfire, his entire form pulsing with raw power. Jinwoo's thoughts raced back to Kamish's warning about 4 humans who had borrowed power from the rulers. As he watched Thomas, the meaning became clear. These were the national-level hunters with mystical powers, and Thomas Andre was unmistakably one of them. Even so, Jinwoo didn't falter. He launched forward, but Thomas slammed his fists into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that tore through the terrain and obliterated everything nearby. Jinwoo leaped back, narrowly avoiding the blast just in time. Thomas created a gravitational zone next, pulling everything toward him in a deadly vortex. Jinwoo's shadows were dragged into the spiral, distorted and scattered. But the hunter pushed back with his own force, resisting the pull as Thomas built up mana above his head, shaping it into a massive energy sphere. He released it without warning. The blast carved out a massive crater, annihilating everything in its radius. Jinwoo landed just beyond the edge, crouching low as the air trembled. Thomas stood within the crater, panting, and warned coldly that he wouldn't miss next time. Thomas charged again. Jinwoo met him midair, his kick smashing into Thomas's head and hurling him across the ground. Thomas retaliated by activating another pull, but Jinwoo used Ruler's authority to accelerate, blasting toward him with explosive speed. Their fists collided in a deafening crash. Yet despite Thomas's reinforced armor, it cracked and the force of Jinwoo's punch sent him crashing through a factory wall. Hunter Bureau vehicles arrived and came to a screeching halt. Agents stood in stunned silence, the overwhelming magical pressure in the air paralyzing them. One figure crashed violently into the ground and the earth trembled. Adam's face turned pale. He instantly recognized the wreckage and the man within it. It was Thomas Andre. No one could believe it. A national-level hunter was being beaten, overwhelmed by Sun Jin-Woo. Thomas tried to rise again, but Jin-Woo was already on him. His punches rained down like hammers, every hit targeted weak points, each blow pushing Thomas closer to collapse. Doubt and confusion seeped into Thomas's mind. How could a mage-type hunter have such speed, such raw power? Blood filled his mouth, yet pride wouldn't let him quit. With blood-stained teeth, Thomas clenched his jaw and roared that he was Thomas Andre, that this wouldn't be enough to bring him down. But Jin-Woo didn't stop. He shifted behind him in a blink, elbowing him in the neck and driving the towering warrior into the ground again. His voice was cold, almost pitying as he muttered that he didn't care who Thomas was. The Bureau agents and scavenger hunters stood frozen. None dared intervene. They could only watch, helpless, as their most powerful ally was being crushed. Adam finally ran toward them, shouting desperately for Jinwoo to stop, pleading with him to end it. But Jinwoo didn't pause. His attacks continued, relentless, precise. The upper armor of Thomas's body was now gone, his torso fully exposed. Blood dripped from his face, his strength waned, and just as Jinwoo wound up for one final devastating punch, Thomas, barely conscious, parted his lips. The words came slowly, weakly, but they were clear. He had admitted defeat. His body slumped, the fight drained from him, conceding that the battle was over. With that, Jinwoo halted, his clenched fist suspended for a moment before he slowly lowered it, standing silently over the fallen Thomas. What did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell because solo leveling just keeps getting better and better. Until next time, this is Otakuact, and remember, arise.